Now, Disney movies are amazing. And I know I have a reputation for just blindly praising Disney. However, because I'm sticking to my New Year's resolution, I will not be blindly praising Disney anymore. That started with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and technically Avatar 2, and that continues to The Little Mermaid. This review, unlike every other review I've done before, is not going to be me going on some crazy raving rant. This is going to have something that they call structure. The reason this is going to have something called structure is because apparently it's very hard to follow, and also it's very hard to edit when I am just going on weird, crazy tangents and just losing my mind. For example, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 review, which you can check out if you want to see that. We're going to be informative and nuanced today, which is a departure from my usual. So hopefully this goes well. Because if it doesn't, well, then we're going back to the craziness and the rantiness. So, that's your choice. Leave a like, leave a comment, follow us on social media and all that stuff, and let's get started. The way this is going to be structured is I'm going to start with the great about this movie, and there is some great in this movie. Then I'm going to talk about some of the not so great to terrible. And finally, I'm going to do something which I think is very important in a good review. I'm going to solve all of Disney's problems for free. And then I will leave with I'll do some devil's advocate stuff and then give a final star rating at the very end. So if you want to know what I rated out of 10, or out of 5, I guess, in this case, stick to the end. Or I guess fast forward to the end. But either way, you have to wait till the end. So let's start with the positives of this movie. There are really just two positives, and they've come in the form of pretty much the two main characters of this film. Those are Halle Bailey and Melissa McCarthy. Now, Halle Bailey, of course, is a star, legend, and honestly just the best person in this movie. She is one of the weirdly enough, very few Disney princesses who can actually sing, which, you'd think would be a requirement. However, it has not been. And honestly, I'm kind of disappointed that this had to be her big, film debut. Because this was just her and Melissa McCarthy, and that's it. Now let's talk about Melissa McCarthy, this is probably her best role since, her Gilmore Girls, Bridesmaids, and Spy, I guess, days. She was menacing. She really fit the role. And I honestly kind of wish she got more screen time than she did, because I think they really did underutilize her. Considering how amazing she was, I would have actually tried to give her some more stuff to do. But they didn't, and that's okay too, I guess. Now, that's pretty much all the good. And everything, everything sang by Ariel was fantastic. I'm going to just say that right now. And I think this is, again, it's kind of, and I kind of thought about this, and it did have something cool, which I'll talk about right now, but the one thing I thought about when I was watching this was getting someone who can really sing well for the one princess who loses their voice for half the movie is probably not the biggest brained move by Disney. But then Disney did kind of redeem itself, because guess what? They said, oh wait, she can just sing in her head. Genius, Disney. Wish you did that more. A lot more. But, we're going to just move on from that for a second. Let's go to the bad, because the good really was just two people, and they were amazing, and I could talk about them for hours, but we're going to talk a little bit about, we'll talk a little bit about the bad. I've just got, there we go. 5, 10, see, this is the thing with timestamps. Anyways, so if I'm being honest, pretty much everything else was bad. And it was on varying degrees of bad, because, like, there's really, really bad, and there's, like, not so bad, and there's, like, great bad, but still bad, So everything kind of just fell on that scale of, like, something bad, It's like if you're on negative numbers, there's something that's real closer to, like, -1, 0, and then there are things that were, like, -45. So, from the water to the CGI to the one random rap song, which was totally Lin-Manuel Miranda putting his mark on the movie. The acting of everybody else outside of the two people I just mentioned. And the prince who looked weirdly like Flynn Rider every time he put on the hat. And honestly, just every time people were generally having conversations or speaking or, looking at the camera. That was also pretty bad. So, yeah, honestly, the prince might have had the best moment for the prince was when he was singing that one song, which was new. Other than that, I mean, you could have taken him or left him. I didn't really care all that much. They did find a weird number of excuses for him to have his shirt off, but I'm sure there was a clearly logical story reason for that. Or have his shirt wet. Again, I understand. It's a water movie. But let's start with the CGI animals. At this point, if you haven't learned from Sonic and Detective Pikachu and others, making iconic animated characters look real doesn't work. Do y'all remember the freaky Sonic? Because I think I do. We don't need to make animated characters who are iconic look real. Because guess what? Okay, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if Disney knows this yet. Real animals can't talk. Do you know what that means? That means just because they look CGI doesn't take away from the quote-unquote realness of the movie, because as soon as they open their mouths, you're like, wait, these aren't real fish or real crabs or real birds. Because guess what? Again, real animals don't talk. So just because you make them look like real fish doesn't make them real fish, because they can still talk. So give Flounder some damn yellow and blue. Appreciate it, Disney, if you could get on that. Sebastian actually wasn't even that bad, to be honest, in terms of colors. It just still felt super weird because, again, it looked very fake, and then his mouth, like, moved a little bit, but not really. But, don't really get much of a say on that part. And honestly, the words the character spoke weren't great. Like, you could have told, if you told me this movie, someone put, like, the entire script of the animated Ariel into ChatGPT and said, make it different slightly, then I think you would have probably gotten this. It didn't feel real in a lot of ways, a lot of things. Either the lines were cringy or cliched or boring. Very rarely were they not in one of those three categories. The prince was also super boring. Who knew that one of the most boring characters up there with, every other prince in Disney princess things, again, probably outside of Flynn Rider and Hans, Kristoff, I guess, and Frozen, yeah. Probably outside of them, probably the most, just another one in a set of very, very boring, forgettable, interchangeable princes. And honestly, that's all I want to say about him, because I literally have no other thoughts, because he did nothing to make me have any other thoughts. He just existed. He barely did anything, barely had any screen time, so, that worked. Actually, I will give them a little bit of credit here. They did give him a little bit more of a motivation to like Ariel besides, just being attracted to her, I guess. Like they tried to put a little bit more of a real relationship in that relationship, a little more depth to it. Didn't really work, but they tried. So kudos for that. Um, and the water wasn't actually wet, which was weird, except for when they were leaving. And I did look it up, and because I had to double check this, but seagulls can apparently breathe underwater or not breathe underwater, but can be underwater for a certain amount of time, like up to 20 minutes. So that one criticism I have kind of falls away. But the water wasn't really wet until someone came out of it, which because they move in the water, talk in the water, whatever, and the water wouldn't move around them. Like if you open your mouth in the water, right? Typically the water moves. Especially if you're a bird, right? Like it felt like they just had a bird in front of a green screen of water, which feels weird and lazy because, again, you kind of expect better from Disney at this point. Like the fact that the bird had made no air bubbles when it spoke. Again, I know animals can't actually talk, so it's hard to know for sure, but that wasn't great either, if we're being honest. Oh yeah, and then also let's just talk about the weird rap that just happened to exist. Not because Lin-Manuel Miranda wanted it there. Totally not. Nope, it was because it was needed, and it didn't feel forced at all. Nope, felt fully forced. It was unnecessary completely, and yeah, I love Lin-Manuel Miranda, obviously, legend, but that was forced. Now, if the entire movie is like Aladdin, I think on one hand kind of set that up a lot better, like set up like the tonal change into some of the songs, when Will Smith did some of his rapping and stuff. But this movie didn't do it at all. They were like trying to be classic, but then they have this weird, random, pointless rap. Also, I gotta rewatch the animated movie because I don't remember Sebastian being such a Zazu from The Lion King, like them being basically the same. I don't remember it like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that he felt a little bit over the top with that kind of Zazu-ness. To the point where I was just kind of like, okay, is this just The Lion King? Because like you've got these ultra realistic animals, and you've got these that when they talk, you're like, what the hell's happening? Also, I really just don't like the trope in this of like the whole story pretty much from the animated one in general. So I don't know if I was like loving this movie because I think that's the problem, right? If you don't love the story of the original, you're going to definitely not love the story of a live action remake of the original. And I think all the lines just fell flat. Now, I think that's pretty much the long and the short of my issues with it. There's some other wonky stuff, CGI stuff, and there was some plot holes and errors and other. I'm sure there was so much more. But I'm going to talk about solutions now because guess what? Solutions matter. So, you know how this. So, let me start by saying this, okay? So, the thing I loved most about this was probably the singing outside of that one song, which felt very weird. And I think a lot of people go into this, and I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'm just going to go and assume that you're not going for the great story. I think you're probably going for the songs, right? I mean, that's mainly why you would even watch the animated movies, is for the music. Now, what's been wildly successful is Hamilton. Hamilton on Disney Plus specifically has been wildly successful, I'm sure. So now, what is there to do? How could they make these live action remakes better? By taking all the bad, especially the bad dialogue out of it, and making it something which people want to go watch for the music. What on earth could they do? Oh, I don't know. Maybe instead of remaking the live action or the animated movies, maybe they just either turn them into Broadway musicals or remake Broadway musicals. Like, look at Aladdin or Lion King, right? Why don't they just remake the musicals instead of the animated movies? Like, it seems dumb, but there's typically the Broadway productions have more songs. Like, you can basically cut out all talking or almost all talking and make it exclusively singing, which would allow you to just have so much more fun with the different songs you can do. You can kind of change it up a little bit, but then you don't have to worry about all this weird, awkward, awful dialogue, and you're also doing something pretty much completely different, and you make it pretty much just one long music video, because or I guess in this case a Broadway production, but as a movie. Because also, guess what? Again, people want the music. I think if they set this up better, like, the music is great. People love the singing. People go to watch Disney movies for the singing. So, I feel like the most logical solution here is just stop trying to remake the animated movies with like 4 songs and, come with a whole bunch of new songs, and either if there is not a Broadway version of it, then make one, and if there is, just use that. And you can even add some new songs, but then just get rid of all the awkward talking and add more songs. That's what people want anyways. Like, that feels like it would solve so many problems. Like, I'm thinking especially about, like, Frozen, right? And how they have, extra songs in the Broadway musical that they don't have in the movie. And it works. And people like it. And you can also then, and look, I'm not saying, do like what Hamilton did and do like the filming of the stage, right? But I mean, you could do that. I wouldn't be opposed to that, actually. But, if you really want to just get some famous people to play some roles, right? Then just get rid of all the talking, because, like, if this movie was just basically all music and very few words, like a real musical, this would be great. I think this would probably be a top tier live action remake. I think Aladdin worked when the songs were going on. Like, when people were singing, it was amazing. When people were talking, it was okay. I think this one just shows you again. Get rid of the talking, put in the music, and we're good. Because at the end of the day, again, people are going to these things to watch people sing. They're not really going for, like, deep, complex stories, because, again, you get that in the animated movie. I feel like that makes the most logical sense, is, like, give us the music, but more of it, and get rid of the talking. I don't really have a solution for outside of, like, make the animals look real and make the water wet for the other stuff, but that's my biggest thing, I think, is just making the Broadway musical. Now, making them all Broadway musicals, but on the big screen. Anyways, now time for some devil's advocate-ness. Okay. You know what? We're going to make an argument here that this was a great movie because it's meant for kids. And at the end of the movie, whether or not I liked it, whether or not anyone else liked it, there was a whole bunch of clapping and cheering. So at the end of the day, does this all really matter? Because at the end of the day, if there's a bunch of kids clapping and cheering, when they zoom out to all the mer people and all the island people all together, and you see all the diversity, and everyone is cheering and kids are cheering, is that not what it's all about at the end of the day? And if the kids are happy, then isn't this movie successful? And do we really need to care about any of this stuff? Because at the end of the day, and this is again me being a devil's advocate here, if everyone is happy, then who really cares, I still went to see it, and I mean, more people are going to go see it, and it was not a bad movie. So maybe that's enough. That's my devil's advocate. Now, without further ado, let's get ready for my rating of this movie. Now, in case you can't tell, Halle Bailey and Melissa McCarthy basically bumped this up by 3 points. Okay, automatically. It's a 3. Okay? Then it being a Disney live action remake of a beloved fairy tale bumps it up 3 points. So now it's at a 6 out of 10. We're doing this out of 10, by the way. So now we're at a 6 out of 10. Now we're going to say that the everything else is. Oof. But because I like Halle Bailey so much and because she was so great, we'll give it one more point. So we're going to end up with a 7 out of 10. 4 points for Ariel and Ursula, and 3 points for being Disney. A Disney live action remake of Ariel and having all the important songs and not really fundamentally screwing anything up with the story. And just, even though it wasn't great in inventiveness, they didn't do anything fundamentally awful. Outside of the weirdest thing, which was they didn't have Ursula's weird, gray things. They were just dead. So I don't fully understand that. And there was the weird third act fight. I didn't even talk about the third act fight. Damn, it was. Whew. Also, Ursula did some weird magic thing because of a blood oath, and also they don't know how monarchies work. I think I don't even know because Ursula should not have been in line. But then again, I guess King Triton didn't actually die, so I'm not even gonna go down that rabbit hole. Anyways, with that being said, thank you all for watching. If you like me not being ranty and being more analytical, thoughtful, and methodical and structured, then please let me know down below. What did you think of this movie? Please put it in the comments. Share this video with your friends or this podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, follow us on social media. Follow this podcast if you're listening on the podcast apps. If you're not, go follow us on the podcast apps. If you're on the podcast apps, go follow us on YouTube. We've got some huge announcements coming soon. And if you're trying to follow us on social media at comicboys_. Yeah, thank you. Bye.